something that we've really done we develop these technologies that don't use chemicals to treat water diseases with plants and animals. They're really amazing. And I studied abroad in Stone Town in Zanzibar, and their sewage just runs right into the ocean, and it's really disgusting. So I had the idea to go back and research and in some ways advocate for this technology. So I spent 6 weeks in Zanzibar.
My thesis was using artificial intelligence. Basically wrote some computer programs that use machine learning algorithms to kind of figure out how to solve different tasks, culminating in a computer program learning how to play poker. Maybe someday I can use that to make some money.
The business program for undergraduates, they had never done thesis before. And I remember going into my advisor and asking him, so, how do we start this thesis thing up? They're like, what are you talking about? And basically, I, along with my good friend Jawan, had to kind of navigate our way through so we could get that senior thesis credit. And we ended up working with an honors seminar called Integrated Product Development. It was run by Jerry Manick, who was actually one of the original designers of the first Mac or Apple computer. Really cool guy. And we sat down and talked with him, and we essentially designed a program where we half of the credits were in this honors seminar, and the other half was us researching more in depth the individual project we were focusing on. Mine happened to be coffee. We were working with Green Mountain to kind of make their K-cups, which are, I'm sure most of you know, the little cups that you put into those funky machines, and it gives you a nice individual sized cup of coffee. And I took that kind of up a level and went more along the lines of coffee sustainability and ecotourism. And I actually worked with one of his connections, this lady, Megan Appler-Wood, who runs an international development company. And I essentially did some research on the plausibility of setting up sustainable ecotourism in El Salvador on coffee plantations that grow it, forest grown, not the kind of commercial mass-produced way of growing coffee. We grow it in the fields. We're trying to grow it in a sustainable way. I kind of interviewed 20 to 30 people across the industries, CEOs, presidents of different companies, such as Green Mountain and Vermont Coffee Roasters and Vermont Artisan Roasters, a whole gamut of coffee producers. And ultimately just gave her kind of a written business SWOT analysis of the plausibility of setting up one of these tourism programs.
My thesis project was a sculpture that I built that was called the Tree of Life. And for me, it consisted basically of this huge dead apple tree that was cut from one of the honors college professor's backyard. So, and it was supported by this enormous city structure. And for me, going through that was quite important because this city structure I couldn't build myself, so I actually had to hire somebody. So my thesis advisor spent a lot of time going into the Burlington area, and that was just an amazing experience. I mean, as an artist in an undergraduate college, to employ other people to build things for you, which is what artists do today. So it was a steel structure that was holding a tree, and then the tree had pieces of poem that I wrote. So, but it was enormous. It was like a black tree.
I did my thesis. It was broadly a study of the way that authors use titles and the way that the specific relationship between titles and texts and how they generate meaning and bounce off one another. And then specifically, it was about this thing which I made up a word for, which I called endominy, which is when the author uses the title of the text in the text itself. And so then, and when as a reader, when you're reading or watching a film and you see or read the words repeated. I've called the anonymous moment, and there's like a process where meaning is created when you realize that this tiny thing that was once on the margins and outside of the book is now inserted in, and you have the process of thinking back about those, and both of them sort of undergo a metamorphosis. So I wrote about that and did a critical study of a few different examples of that, and the uses to which that is put, and how meaning is generated.
Okay, so my thesis was sort of a combination of, I guess, 2 years of work that I've done in a lab. So a lot of the work that is done in that lab has to do with cell signaling and neuron regulation. So, like in a developing organism, you have to have a couple cells, and then they have to sort of migrate through and make their final connections. So I was actually researching a protein that was involved in one of the pathways involved in the signaling. So I was mainly characterizing the protein and how it was involved in the signaling pathway, and I identified like a kinase that was responsible for phosphorylation that was most likely in one of the already established pathways. So that was essentially it in a nutshell what I was working on.
I did my thesis on environmental justice policy in the state of Vermont. Environmental justice is sort of the idea that certain communities are less politically powerful and will face a higher burden of pollution and pollution-related illness over their lifetime, among their children, etc. So I drove all over the state interviewing folks who were facing higher burdens of lead poisoning, who were near Superfund sites, who were just near large manufacturers and had more respiratory illness, high rates of cancer, and made policy recommendations to the legislature on how to create some kind of commission, move forward on making demographics a larger part of how we study health and pollution-related illness in the state. It's still a bill that I'm working on in the legislature. It hasn't passed because it needs to do anything. But still working on it.
It's humbling, isn't it? They're all like that. I mean, I just have to say, I used to run a thesis seminar for seniors back in the John Dewey Honors days, and they would all, there would be 50, or at the time it was a much smaller group, but 40, 50, 60 students, and they would all go around and talk about their thesis projects, and I would sit there feeling very small. It's amazing what they do. It's amazing. Those of you who are first-year students, those of you who are sitting there that are first-year students, that's what you do. It's incredible. Yeah.
How often is the information that they've gathered, the research that they've done for their thesis, applied to the working world? How often is it able to be used?
But how many of you would say that you, like, just based on what you've done, Asia says a bill. What do you think?
I think that there's, especially among certain advisors, thesis advisors, they encourage you to do something that is relevant. I will say it's very difficult. I think my impression is that from, especially some of the strictly academic research settings, it's somewhat difficult to contribute to your field as an undergraduate. That was like something I've heard. But when you're doing projects like John talked about he gave that SWOT analysis to a business director. The Zanzibar government has mine on file, so they're looking at projects again. So those things, they're designed to be useful for people. That's like why you should be doing it.
What about Elias and Aida, since you did things that were arts related? Different way of thinking about usefulness, probably, but nonetheless, important. How would you characterize?
I would say, mine, because it's, I feel really humble because what I do doesn't feel like it makes really changes on you guys. But I think mine is really helping me think about my practice as an